this scenario where you've got thousands of Australian citizens stuck in what is now an epicentre, one of the worst places on earth when it comes to COVID-19. What's your sense of it? It seems broadly politically, it's probably not going to be unpopular, but morally,
well, I think you're right.
Is it the right call?
It's a really tough one for governments. I mean, governments are faced with very tough calls in the face of a pandemic at any time, because very often the response has to involve the removal of certain rights, as we've seen with lockdowns and border closures and these types of things in the past. But we do have a situation here. I mean, I think Andrew Bolt was making a very good point before. We do have a situation here where we're talking about thousands of people who are Australian citizens. What is Australian citizenship worth? What does it mean? We all know about the feelings of great joy and inclusion that come from people being naturalised as citizens on Australia Day, at those sorts of ceremonies. It means a great deal to be a member of a nation. We know that governments move heaven and earth to get back their citizens from hostage situations, from war situations, from natural disaster situations.
One of the critics has been Kylie Moore-Gilbert herself, and we know what that academic has just been through in Iran.
Yeah.
And she's been scathing of this, saying, look, she was held under false pretences, and now we're seeing a scenario where Australian citizens are being left basically to fend for themselves in a place where the hospital system is not holding up.
Well, it's not holding up because it's under siege from huge numbers. We're talking about a nation of an enormous population. We know its health system is not of in terms of its universal access, nowhere near the standard of Australia's anyway. As I say, these are Australian citizens. I think they have innate rights, of course. One of the questions that flows from that is, should we be doing more for them even if we aren't bringing them back? I mean, is there an intermediary policy such as ensuring that they have access to the vaccine, which would go some considerable way towards protecting them and improving their life chances?
What about flights to, like we saw from Wuhan, Australian citizens repatriated from Wuhan early 2020, when this whole thing started? There were flights from Wuhan to Christmas Island. The Australian citizens there were quarantined and then brought back to the mainland. Well, that seems like a decent model to at least get some vulnerable Australians stuck there, to get them out.
It does, if you've got the facilities to put them into. And if we think right back, we've been doing this now, this pandemic, the world, for whatever it is, 14 months. And the story has been consistent all the way through that we've struggled to get Australians home who are trying to get home to the country of their citizenship. We know that there are all kinds of people all around the world that have been at least logistically prevented from being able to get here. And one of the biggest factors in that has been capacity back here in terms of the hotel quarantine system. We've tried to run this with the state-administered hotel quarantine system. We know there have been some problems with that. We also know there are capacity problems with it. What you're talking about is a more dedicated facility or a series of facilities that can handle these populations en masse. And I think we've tried as a nation, the government has tried as a nation essentially to get by without doing that. And I think the pressure is now coming on.
Tell you what,
the logic of it is really sound.
It is the sound. I think the logic of it, the political logic of moving on this and revising it, I think the Prime Minister is feeling it, because he's saying, look, I'll look at that review on the flights out of India sooner than May 15. He said there might be an earlier review.
And yet you can't imagine...
Because this is a big cohort, though, in Australia. 600,000 Australians of Indian heritage. So it's not like it's in terms of the moral question, the humanitarian question, what about the political question as well?
Yeah, I agree. Numerically, that's a very significant constituency. And of course, the R word is being thrown around by some, that there is a racial element to this, that this wouldn't happen if it were a white English-speaking population or a European population. Would we be so quick to holus bolus prevent their return to Australia? It's hard to know. Of course, we don't know the answer to that. Really, people can conjecture about it. But yes, I think it's got some fairly serious political implications. But your opening point was right too. I think the broad Australian population is eager to see the government take as muscular action as is possible to stop the virus getting out here as well.
Mark Kenny from ANU, thanks as always, appreciate it.
Thanks, Kieran.